Have you ever walked past that small shelf in your home, or perhaps opened a drawer in your bedside table and seen it sitting there? The small plastic bottle, or perhaps a glass vial, half full, gathering a fine layer of dust. You know exactly what it is. You brought it home from a pilgrimage, or perhaps you took it from the font at church on Easter Sunday 3 years ago. It is holy water. You keep it because you believe somewhere deep in your heart that it matters. You keep it because you want your home to be safe. You keep it because you are a person of faith. But let me ask you a question that might unsettle you, a question that requires you to look not at the bottle, but at the atmosphere of the rooms you sleep in. If that water is meant to be a shield, why does the air in your home feel so heavy? If that water is meant to cleanse, why do the same arguments, the same anxieties, and the same spiritual fatigue return to your family week after week, like a tide that never truly recedes? There is a strange phenomenon that occurs in the lives of many believers, a silent disconnect that we rarely speak about because we are afraid it means our faith is weak. We surround ourselves with the objects of holiness, the crucifix on the wall, the rosary on the mirror, the water on the shelf, yet we feel spiritually exposed. We feel a draft coming from a door we thought we had locked. You might be waking up at 3:00 a.m. with a sense of dread you cannot explain. You might notice that no matter how much you pray for peace, a sharp, biting tension seems to linger in the hallways of your house, snapping at your children or creating distance between you and your spouse. You look at that bottle of holy water and you think, I have the protection. But having a weapon in a locked cabinet is not the same as holding it in your hand when the thief breaks in. There is a profound difference between possession and application, between holding a sacramental and unleashing its power. Most of us are guilty of treating the things of God like museum pieces rather than the active, burning realities they are meant to be. We treat holy water like a souvenir of grace, rather than grace itself in liquid form. And this dormancy, this passive collecting of holy things, is not just neutral. It is dangerous. It creates a false sense of security while the spiritual dust settles on our souls, just as physical dust settles on the bottle. We assume the battle is being fought for us simply because the object is present. But the spiritual life is not a passive state. It is an active warfare. And when we neglect the tools we have been given, we do not just stay in the same place. We drift backward. This is where the wisdom of the saints becomes uncomfortable. It stops being a comforting pat on the back and becomes a mirror showing us what we have been ignoring. We are talking about a specific warning, a specific insight that cuts through the modern noise of our comfortable, distracted spirituality. It is a warning that comes from a man who bore the wounds of Christ, a man who lived with 1 foot in the visible world and 1 foot in the invisible battleground. Padre Pio warned what happens to homes that keep holy water but don't use it properly. He saw something that we often miss. He saw that a sacramental, treated with indifference, can become a testament to our lukewarmness rather than a seal of our protection. You see, the problem isn't that we don't believe. The problem is that we have domesticated the supernatural. We have made it small. We have made it tidy. We put the holy water in a nice bottle and we leave it there, thinking its mere presence acts like a radioactive shield that repels evil automatically. But look at your life right now. Look at the recurring struggles that seem to have no natural cause, the sudden bursts of anger, the lingering sadness that hangs over your living room, the inexplicable fatigue that hits you the moment you walk through your own front door. These are not always just psychological or physical symptoms. Often, they are the accumulation of spiritual debris. We live in a world that is teeming with invisible realities. Every conversation, every image on the television, every stress brought home from work carries a spiritual weight. Our homes are like sponges. They absorb the emotions, the conflicts, and the spirits of those who enter them. if you are not actively cleansing that space, if you are not actively claiming the territory of your home for Christ, that debris builds up. It creates a spiritual static that makes prayer difficult and peace impossible. You might be thinking that you're doing something wrong, that you're not praying enough, or that God has forgotten you. But perhaps the answer is simpler and more immediate. Perhaps you have the remedy sitting right there on your shelf, ignored and gathering dust. This is the tragedy of the unused sacramental. It is a thirst while standing next to a well. It is a vulnerability while standing next to armor. We are not talking about superstition here. We are talking about the theology of the incarnation, that God uses matter to convey spirit. When we ignore that, we ignore the way God has chosen to work. We try to fight spiritual battles with purely mental energy, trying to think our way into peace, while the physical means of grace remain untouched. And in that gap, in that space between our mental anxiety and the unused grace, the enemy finds a foothold. He doesn't need to do much. He just needs to let us forget the power we have within reach. Padre Pio was not a man of half measures. To understand his warning, we must understand the man himself. He was not merely a priest who said Mass and heard confessions. He was a mystic who lived in a state of constant spiritual combat. For Padre Pio, the veil between this world and the next was incredibly thin, sometimes non-existent. He saw the angels standing beside his spiritual children. He saw the demons that prowled around, seeking to disturb the peace of the faithful. He didn't speak of these things as metaphors or symbols. To him, they were as real as the stone walls of the monastery at San Giovanni Rotondo. When Padre Pio blessed water, or when he instructed his spiritual children to use it, he wasn't suggesting a nice, pious custom. He was handing them ammunition. He understood that the devil is a legalist. The enemy looks for rights, for openings, for unclaimed territory. A home that is filled with worldly noise, worldly anxieties, and worldly sins, but is never cleansed, never claimed, becomes a playground for confusion. Padre Pio knew that holy water is a scourge to the demonic because it is a reminder of our baptism. It is a reminder of who we belong to. When that water is applied with faith, it is like a burning seal of ownership that forces the darkness to recoil. However, his authority on this matter comes with a caveat, a revelation that is often incomplete in our modern understanding. We like the idea of the magic object. We want to believe that if we just buy the right crucifix or get the water from the right shrine, we are safe. But Padre Pio taught that the power of the sacramental is deeply tied to the disposition of the heart that uses it. This is the crucial point where many of us fail. We treat the water like a chemical cleaning agent, pour it on, and the stain disappears. But it is not magic. It is a prayer in physical form. If the heart is far from God, the water is just water. There is a profound danger in keeping holy things without a holy intent. It creates a spiritual dissonance. Imagine a house filled with religious statues, where the family members scream at each other with hatred. Imagine a bedroom with a rosary on the bedpost, where sins of impurity are committed without a second thought. Imagine a shelf with holy water in a home where there is no forgiveness. Padre Pio warned that this hypocrisy does not fool the spiritual world. In fact, it can attract a specific kind of mocking spirit. It turns our faith into a costume. The warning is clear. Do not use the holy to hide the unholy. Use the holy to cleanse the unholy. Before we go any deeper into the specific signs that you might be misusing this gift, I want to invite you to make a small, internal act of alignment. You don't need to move. Just in the quiet of your own mind, acknowledge the times you have treated God's power as a convenience rather than a necessity. Acknowledge the dust on the bottle. Say to yourself, Lord, awaken my spirit to the tools you have given me. This simple shift in perspective is the beginning of the change. It is the beginning of moving from superstition to true faith. Now we must look at the specific ways this negligence manifests. There are three specific errors, three silent killers of grace that Padre Pio often hinted at in his letters and counsel. The first is what we might call the talisman error. This is when you keep the holy water, but you treat it like a lucky rabbit's foot. You put it near the door or in the car, and you think, now nothing bad can happen to me. You never pray, you never sprinkle it, you just trust in its presence. This is dangerous because it replaces trust in God with trust in an object. It is a subtle form of idolatry. The demons do not fear the water itself if it is detached from Christ. They fear the faith of the one who uses it. When you treat it as a lucky charm, you are operating on a level of superstition that has no spiritual authority. The second error is stagnation. This is perhaps the most common. It is the bottle that sits for years. The water evaporates, leaving a residue, or it simply sits there, forgotten. This physical stagnation mirrors a spiritual stagnation. A home where the holy water is never used is a home where the spiritual air is never circulated. Just as you must open windows to let fresh air in, you must use these sacramentals to let grace flow. When the water sits stagnant, it is a sign that the family has stopped fighting. They have accepted the status quo. They have accepted the tension, the bickering, the heaviness as normal. The warning here is that when you stop fighting, you have already begun to lose. The third error, and the most severe, is unrepentant usage. This is when we use the water, perhaps we sprinkle the beds or the doors, but we refuse to change our lives. We refuse to forgive the person who hurt us. We refuse to let go of a pet sin. We use the water like a band-aid over a deep infected wound. Padre Pio was a confessor above all else. He knew that the greatest exorcism is a good confession. If you sprinkle holy water on the walls of a home that is filled with the sludge of mortal sin, you are engaging in a contradiction. You are asking for peace while holding on to the very things that destroy peace. The water cries out for a clean heart to match the clean house. These revelations are not meant to shame you. They are meant to unlock a door that has been stuck. How many of us stop at the first sign? We buy the water, we feel good, and we stop. But the spiritual life is a climb, not a campsite. The danger of the talisman error is that it leaves you defenseless when the real storm comes. The danger of stagnation is that you slowly suffocate in a spiritual fog without realizing it. And the danger of unrepentant usage is that you mock God, and God is not mocked. The atmosphere of your home is a reflection of the spiritual work being done or not done within it. Let me tell you a story that illustrates this perfectly. It is a story that could belong to any of us. Let's call them Thomas and Sarah. They were a good couple, church-going, decent people living in a suburb that looked perfect on the outside. They had a crucifix in the hall and a bottle of water from Lourdes that Thomas's mother had given them years ago. It sat on the high shelf of a china cabinet, behind glass, next to the good plates they never used. For years, things were fine, but then a subtle shift began. It didn't start with a tragedy. It started with a temperature change. The warmth went out of their home. Thomas would come home from work and feel an immediate wave of irritation the moment he crossed the threshold. Sarah found herself unable to sleep, waking up at odd hours with a racing heart and dark, intrusive thoughts. Their children, usually happy, began to have night terrors. The house felt crowded, even when it was empty. They argued over nothing: dishes, schedules, tone of voice. The air felt thick, like the pressure before a thunderstorm that never breaks. They tried everything. They went to therapy. They took vacations. They changed their diets. But the moment they walked back into that house, the weight returned. It was as if a grey film had covered their lives. One evening, in a moment of desperation, Sarah was dusting the china cabinet. She moved the good plates, and her hand brushed against the small plastic bottle. It was covered in grey dust. She picked it up. It was light, almost empty from evaporation, But there was a little left. She remembered what a priest had told her once about the domestic church, that the parents are the priests of their own home. She didn't just put it back. She took the bottle out. She called Thomas. She didn't make a big speech. She just said, "We need to reclaim this house." They felt foolish at first. It feels strange for modern people to do these things. But Thomas took the bottle. He poured a little into his hand. He didn't just splash it. He prayed. He asked God to drive away whatever spirit of anger and division had taken root. He went to the children's rooms. He sprinkled the threshold of the front door. He sprinkled the pillows where they couldn't sleep. And here is the reality of the testimony. The sky didn't turn purple and lightning didn't strike. But that night, for the first time in 6 months, the children slept through the night. The next evening, when Thomas walked in, the bite in the air was gone. The heaviness had lifted. It wasn't magic. It was the fact that they had finally aligned their physical reality with their spiritual faith. They had stopped treating the water as a decoration and started using it as a declaration of authority. They brought God back into the corners of their rooms. This story is not unique. It happens every day. The restoration of peace often begins with a simple act of claiming what is yours. But you must understand what happened there. It wasn't just the water. It was the will. It was the decision to stop tolerating the darkness. It was the humility to use the small, simple tools that God provides. So, where does this leave you? It leaves you with a choice and a challenge. The fear you might feel about the spiritual warfare surrounding you is natural, but it must not paralyze you. Padre Pio did not warn us so that we would be afraid. He warned us so that we would be prepared. He wants you to move from a state of vulnerability to a state of vigilance. The bottle on your shelf is waiting. Here is what you must do. Do not wait for a crisis. Do not wait for the heavy air to suffocate your joy. Go to that shelf today. Wipe the dust off the bottle. If it is empty, take it to your parish and fill it. This is your right as a baptized Christian. Then bring it home, but do not just put it back. Establish a ritual. It doesn't have to be long. Before you go to sleep or before you leave for work, bless yourself. Bless your children. Sprinkle a little in the corners of the rooms where you spend the most time. And as you do it, say a simple prayer. It doesn't need to be fancy. By this holy water and by your precious blood, wash away all my sins, O Lord, and protect this home from all evil. Make this a habit, not a superstition. Let the water remind you of your baptismal promises. Let it remind you that you have renounced Satan and all his works. When you use the water with this intent, you are turning up the spiritual light in your home. The shadows cannot stay where the light is active. I want you to take a moment right now, before you scroll away, to make a commitment to your own peace. In the comments below, I want you to write a simple declaration of faith. Write, "I claim the peace of my home." Let this be your first step. Let this be the moment you stop collecting dust and start collecting grace. The warning of Padre Pio is serious, but the remedy is simple. The power is within your reach. Use it.